Who are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I'm here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to talk about job hunting, career building, starting and running a business, and building wealth, the whole financial side of life. And so today, my topic is, I call the episode Money Made Simple, but it's really, how to build wealth when you're really just not that interested in finances, right? And that may seem, I probably wouldn't be, watching your show. And okay, maybe you'll happen upon this or if you're someone who watches the show and you have a friend who really isn't interested in finance, so maybe tell them about this particular episode, and it'll give them some ideas on what they can do to build the financial side of their life without having to immerse themselves in numbers and spreadsheets and all those kind of things. So I have just a few thoughts on this, but I think it's important because uh, we also go through different periods in our lives where we have more time for certain things than we have for other things. And, if you're at my stage of life where, my daughter is an adult now and, essentially gone, so I am not as involved in child rearing as I was 10 years ago. On the other hand, if you have young children or even one young child, that takes a lot of your time. And so you just don't have the time to spend focused on finances, even if you want to. And so some of these ideas I think will also be helpful if you're in a situation where for whatever reason you don't have the time to devote to dealing with your finances that you might like to. Your focus has to be somewhere else. And by the way, even for those of you who are and enjoy being involved with your finances and really digging in, I think you will find some of these ideas to be very, very useful, and they'll help you optimize the time you spend dealing with your finances so that the results are better because you're able to more usefully use your time. So usefully use. That sounds like a strange phrase to me. Anyway, all right. So first of all, I think the best piece of advice I can give you is to automate your finances as much as possible. And these days, it's easier than it ever was before. So first of all, almost all banking is online or on an app on your phone or both these days. That's number one. And number two, even vendors, whether it's departments of water and power, like the Department of Water and Power, like we have here in Los Angeles, which provides electricity, water, and sewer services, or the gas company, or Southern California Edison, whatever company you have, cell phone companies, cable companies, internet service providers, almost all of them will allow you to automate your payments. And so you can go onto your bank's website and sign up for example, if you're a renter, you can go on your bank's website and have your rent check sent out automatically on whatever the appropriate day of the month is. Okay, that's what I do. It just goes right. And I have a reminder to myself to just make sure that the two accounts from which my rent is paid are covered for the funds that have to go out. Okay, just as a double check. Maybe I had a big expense in a particular month, and the balance dropped, and so I need to move, money over from, another account to make sure that the check is covered. But in general, I automate all of that, and that way I just don't have to focus on it. Look, the bills have to get paid. There's the only other alternative is not paying your bills, and then your creditors come after you, right? They start calling you and hawking you for money, right? So you can set all of that up online automatically or through an app automatically. If you have a mortgage, so you own your home and you're paying off a mortgage, virtually every lender will let you set up automatic payments. And in some cases, they will even give you a small interest rate reduction if you set up your payments to be made automatically, maybe a quarter of a percent. You say, well, quarter of a percent, big deal. Well, look, every bit of money saved is to your benefit. So even if you have to just double check to make sure that you have the balance to pay your mortgage each month, still better to get the slightly lower interest rate, and just a little bit more money each month goes to pay off the principal, and so you pay less interest, you pay more principal. Or you can always increase your loan payment a little bit and pay it off more quickly. Okay, so automate, first of all of your payments, and that way you just don't have to be obsessed about, oh, did I miss the due date for this payment or that payment. That's number one. Number two, automate your savings as well. So if you have and hopefully you do have a savings account, maybe where you keep your so-called rainy day fund or your emergency fund. So if you're building that up, if you're brand new to your finances, set up just automatically with each paycheck, or with each, if you're self-employed, each time you get paid, automatically transfer part of that to your savings account until you build that balance up to what it needs to be. And then from there, automate some kind of investment plan. Okay. And again, just like the banks, all of the fintech companies, whether it's Robinhood, E-Trade, uh, Fidelity, all of these companies will allow you to set up automatic investing in some kind of brokerage or investment account. Okay. And even if it's only, $50 a month. So $50 a month is much, much better than $0 per month. You might say, well, $50 a month is $600 a year. Big deal. Well, it is a big deal because you're building the self-discipline to not use that money, right? And you're starting to build some wealth. And then over the years, you can increase as your income grows, you can increase the amount that's automatically invested, and it'll grow even faster, right? So part of setting things up to be handled automatically, whether it's paying bills or making investments, is to build up your self-control, we'll call it, your discipline, I think is better. Your discipline in handling your monetary affairs, your financial affairs. Okay. So it all works better, and you're able to do more as time goes by. Okay. So automate your money wherever you can. Okay. And as much as possible. That's number one. Okay. Number two, first and foremost, focus on income, not just investments. Okay. So building wealth comes from essentially two sources. One is saving and investing part of the money you earn, but the other is in earning more money, right? And so one of the best things you can do to build wealth is to earn more money. And you do that by increasing your skills, increasing your knowledge, increasing your experience. And then if you're an employee looking for opportunities to advance your career, to negotiate for a higher compensation, to take on more responsibility and expand your role. So right now, for example, I think there is perhaps, and you know, if you watch my show, I do not speak in superlatives, but I think there's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity going on right now with the advent of AIs, especially large language models and automation AIs, to learn how they work well, to learn that well, and to come up with ideas on how it can make your job at a company more um, effective and gosh, what's the other word I'm looking for? You can more efficient is the word I'm looking for. So make yourself more efficient and more effective, and be able to show the people for whom you work that you have this skill. And from there, you might have an opportunity to deploy your knowledge throughout the company. And if you're at all concerned about an AI replacing you, well, this is the ideal way to make sure it doesn't, because you're going to be the one, or at least one of the people, implementing how AI is used in your company right now. And if you have your own business like I do, so the same thing goes in the sense that I use AI to make myself more productive, more efficient in the work that I do. And I've been able to cut, gosh, somewhere between, I think, 10 and 20% of my work hours. Okay. So whereas I used to work essentially 5.5 to 5 3/4, even 6 days a week, because I would work half to a full day on Sundays. Now I don't have, generally speaking, I don't have to work on Sunday. So I can get done the same, actually even a little bit more work Monday through Friday. And I of course, I as again, if you watch the show, I observe a traditional Jewish Sabbath, so I don't work Saturday anyway. But now, generally speaking, I don't work on Sundays, so I can take my bike ride and go to the farmers market and go see old classic movies, right? So as a business owner, AI can make you more productive, more efficient. And one of the, I think, misnomers about having one's own business is that you don't have to work as much. That's generally not the case. It's usually the reverse. So then, um, using AI, large language models, and automation will give you some time back. It'll give you some more control over your schedule, which in my experience, that is the biggest advantage of having your own business, is you have control over your schedule much more so than that you don't have to work as much, or that you necessarily make more money. Neither of those latter two are typically the case when you have your own business. But what you have is much more control over your life, in the sense of you're reaping the benefits of your work, number one, and number two, you have control over how and when you work. Okay, so focus on income, not just investments. Look to upskill, look to gain more knowledge, work to get a more responsible position, negotiate for higher compensation. All of those, then, as your compensation goes up, you will have more money to invest. Okay, and that's as important as the actual investing itself. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, invest in what you use and understand. Okay. This is something I actually learned pretty early on in my career. So, back when I started investing in any sort of significant way, um, online stock trading was just starting. Okay. So this was, I want to say, maybe the early 1990s, I think. And my income was increasing, and I was contributing regularly to my retirement plan. And I found that I still had some additional funds that I could invest. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll make some investments in the stock market. And I didn't want to put more investments in mutual funds because my retirement funds were invested in mutual funds. There were no such things as ETFs back then, or if there was, they were just getting started. They weren't generally known. And so my situation was, in what stocks should I invest? And, I thought, well, maybe I'll just invest in some blue chips, but I didn't really know a whole lot about them. And so I thought about it for a while, and I realized that because at the time I was very involved, my company was a real estate company. So I was very involved in real estate. And in particular, I was doing a lot of work in sort of specialized real estate. So things like casinos, um, mineral processing facilities, all these sort of weird kind of things that were sort of almost real estate business hybrids. Okay. And because I also had um, um, a practice representing emerging writers, so I was pretty involved with the entertainment business as well. And one of the things that I spent a lot of time researching, just because I found it so interesting, were what are called exhibitors. At least in the entertainment business, are called exhibitors. We out in the real world, we call it movie theaters, right? But exhibitors were companies that owned lots of movie theaters. Okay, AMC, for example, is one of the largest exhibitors here in the United States. So at the time, there was a lot of consolidation going on in the exhibition business. And there were, I believe, 6 major exhibitors left in the United States. And it was clear that there was going to be further consolidation. And with that consolidation, my intuition, if you will, based on the research I had done, was that the stocks of exhibition companies were going to increase. The challenge was, though, I didn't know out of the 6 which were going to be the sort of last 1, 2, or maybe 3 companies standing. So what I decided to do was to make the same size investment in all 6 companies. Okay, and so that's what I did. And within the next 6 months, 2 of the companies had essentially gone out of business. So I lost 40% of my investment. 2 more were acquired by the other 2 companies. And those other 2 companies, one of their stocks went up by a factor of, hold your hat on, 20 times. And the other one tripled. And I didn't think it was going to go up 20 times, by the way. But my sense was that, even if a couple of them went out of business, it wasn't going to matter because the others, because of their additional economies of scale and greater control in the market, vis-a-vis the distributors of movies, they were going to do much better. And so basically, overall, my investment went up by, I think, over 5 times, right? And so what I did was I cashed out my original investment by selling some of the stock, and I just left the rest because the rest was all pure profit. And eventually I sold that out. Like I said, I essentially, over the years, it kind of went up and down, whatever. I think I eventually made like a 4 times my investment profit on them. Okay. Now, the reason I was able to do that was because I knew that sector of the economy very well. So after that one, I thought, well, I also know the cable business very well, although it turned out not as well as the exhibition business. So I did a similar thing in the cable business. And in the cable business, it was a similar thing. A couple of companies ended up going out of business. A couple were acquired by others. I was left with 2 or 3, and I roughly doubled my money. So it didn't work out as well as the first one, but still doubling my money in a year, I thought was pretty good. So rather than thinking, oh, I've got to do all this research and figure all this stuff out, rather than looking at it from that perspective, look at it from the perspective of, in what things are you interested? In what things will you want to do some research? Okay. Maybe you really love cars. Okay. So then researching car companies would, I would think, would be fun. Okay. Seeing, how they work from a financial standpoint will enhance your enjoyment of cars, even if your enjoyment is really owning cars, but sort of knowing the history of companies, how they've merged and whatever, how they've grown, all that kind of stuff. So maybe that would be something for you to look into, and maybe you would enjoy your investigation into the financial side, because the main part of it is something that you really like. So maybe your thing is travel, and so investigating travel companies will be interesting for you. Now maybe you're already maybe you work for a big food company, and or a big healthcare company, and so you're already enmeshed in it in your work anyway, right? So then it may not be that much more work for you to understand that sector more broadly by learning about your competitors, which, by the way, could help you at your job as well, right? To understand, if you're with United Health, for example, and you learn how California Blue, i.e. Blue Cross, operates in different states, that might help you in your job, and at the same time it might give you some insight into how you might invest successfully. So invest in what you know and understand. The other thing you can do is, rather than obsessing over market trends, is, if you're already invested in EFTs or mutual funds or whatever, so you know continue to invest in those. You're already there, and if you're invested in an EFT, for example, that mirrors the S&P 500. So okay, so as long as the stock market is growing, you're gonna be fine, and you don't really have to spend any time. Okay. Or maybe you want to invest in some kind of tangible assets that you understand. Maybe you understand real estate. So maybe investing in stocks and bonds and such is not the right thing. Maybe you should invest in real estate. Maybe you are really interested in coins and stamps. Okay. There is money to be made investing in coins and stamps. There are many people who do that. Now, I've been a coin collector since I was 11 years old, but I was never knowledgeable enough about coins to be to consider investing in them. But if you're a real devoted coin collector, maybe that's something for you to look into from an investment standpoint. There's so many collectibles now, far more than there was 40 years ago, when I was sort of starting on my investing. And so, investing in tangible assets, that can be another way for you to invest in what you know and understand, since you're already involved in them. Okay, so that's another way to simplify your finances. Okay, all right, that's number 3. And then number 4. Yeah. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's take a break here and we'll come back. When life brings unexpected changes, managing inherited property shouldn't add to your stress. Magnum Properties specializes in probate and trust real estate management. We handle the complexities while you focus on what matters most. From property maintenance to tenant relations, from legal compliance to maximizing value, we're your trusted partner through every step. Magnum Properties, Inc., turning property challenges into peace of mind. Call us today at 213-264-4396 or visit magnumprops.com. Okay, so this is People Making Money, and I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, talking about money made simple. This is finances for people who just they don't want to have to spend a lot of time dealing with their finances. And so giving you some thoughts on how you can automate your finances, how you can build wealth without having to, devote your time to, studying um, pages and pages of stock reports or company reports and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So I talked about, first of all, I mentioned, automate your finances. Focus on building your income in addition to building wealth, and then invest in what you understand. Okay, whether that's within things like bonds, stocks and bonds, or whether it's tangible assets like real estate, whatever that is. Okay, so next, uh, it's a good idea, and this goes along with the idea of automating your finances. Is set a goal and then automate how you're going to achieve that goal. So for example, if you want to buy a home, okay, and you need to save up for the down payment, right? So automate that process. Okay, set up a separate savings accounts are nothing these days, but maybe a money market account, or even, maybe some kind of account that invests in an ETF or something, and automate your investments in that account. So you and set it up so that, if you want to buy a house, let's say in 2 years, and you know that you're going to need a down payment of, let's say, $40,000. So 40,000 divided by 24 is about $1,500 thereabouts, a little over that, $1,600. Okay. And so you know that you're going to have to put $1,600 a month in that account. Okay. Now, maybe with some interest or some return on your investment, maybe it only has to be $1,500 a month, and the rest will accumulate through the return on investment. But you set it up to just happen automatically. If you want to pay for an education, like maybe it's for your children, so set up a 529 plan, and again, just automate your contributions to that plan, so that, and start when your children are young. So if you're, if you want to have the money there so your child can go to college, or maybe your child wants to go to some kind of technical school, learn a trade, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, or learn automobile repair. I've talked about this from time to time. It may sound silly, but mechanics, especially for higher end cars like BMWs and Mercedes Benz, a lot of them are making six figures. Maybe not when they first start out, but after a few years, especially in a market like Los Angeles, they're making $110,000, $120,000 a year or more. These, the cars are very, very complex today. It takes a high level of knowledge, and there's a lot of training that a person needs to have in order to be a qualified mechanic for these kind of cars. So, set up some kind of educational fund for your children, and that way when they turn 18, let's say, so the money will be there for them to get the kind of education or training that they need. Or maybe you just want to set up a fund for them. Maybe it's not necessarily education only. Maybe you would like to give them the option of being able to start a business. And so you want to build up from, by the time they're 18 years old, that they'll have $100,000 or $150,000. They can use it for an education. They can use it for vocational training, or they can use it as startup funds for a business. If you've ever started your own business, think of what it would have meant to you if your parents had started a business startup fund for you when you were first born, or when you were, 3 or 4 years old. So if you think about it, if you've got 15 years to save up, let's say $150,000, that's $10,000 a year. That's $800 a month. Okay. Now that may be a big number, so maybe that's, more than you can do. But also, by the way, if you're investing the money, not just saving it, but investing it. So if you want to have $150,000 for your child to use to, get an education or start a business, you probably don't even have to have you wouldn't have to have $800 a month. You might have to only, maybe it's only $400 or $500 a month, and with the return on investment, it will build up to the point where they have, somewhere between $100 and $150,000 a month. So whatever your goal is, set that goal and then automate how the goal is implemented, so you don't have to be spending a lot of time focused on it and figuring it out. Okay. Same thing goes for retirement, by the way. If you have a 401k plan or a SEP IRA, whatever it is, okay, figure out what your goals are and then just automate it, and then you don't have to be concerned with it. You don't have to be involved with it. Okay. So that's number, I think that's number 4. Number 5, use professionals, right? If you're not interested in finances, that's perfectly fine. But especially as your wealth grows and your investments need to get more sophisticated, you do need to get good advice. So find a professionals on whom you can rely and in whom you can trust, or you can place your trust. So you're going to want to have at least a tax preparer or a CPA. If you have your own business, you're probably going to want a CPA. Generally speaking, a good CPA will save you more in taxes than it costs you to pay the CPA. That's a good rule of thumb, right? So I know I've only had 3 CPAs my whole life. Okay, I had the CPA when I had my first company for almost 20 years. I had the same accountant. He was fantastic, saved me a ton of money, far more than I ever paid him. And then, excuse me, unfortunately, he died right after I joined the Navy. And so I had another CPA for several years while I was in the Navy and right after I got out. And then as my things got more complicated, I needed to get someone who could deal with more complicated matters. And so now I have my longtime friend. I'll give him a plug, Bruce Bylowski. Bruce and I have known each other for a long, long time, and Bruce handles all my financial matters from an accounting standpoint. And again, Bruce has saved me far more in taxes than I've ever paid him. So that's kind of my benchmark for a good CPA. Okay, but you also may want a wealth advisor, a wealth manager. You may decide to get into some significant estate planning, so you'll want an estate planning lawyer to help you out. Okay, and when you get into more sophisticated levels of wealth building, so you'll build a team, and one of the members of the team will be the captain. It may be your lawyer, it may be your wealth advisor, whoever it is, and that person will make sure that the team is all working together. Okay, and they'll keep you up to date, but you don't necessarily have to be immersed in finances. Okay, the main thing is you've got to find someone in whom you can place your trust and who is indeed trustworthy, right? So, I'll top my own horn for a minute, right? This is something that I do professionally. Not that I want you to hire me, I don't mean it that way, but look for someone that you can trust. Okay, now you might be tempted to hire a family member. And I would caution you to really think hard about that. While that can be a great decision, it may also be a terrible decision, right? Because oftentimes when money is on the table, all of the family dirty laundry gets mixed in with regular business, and that can be difficult. Okay, so think about that before you decide that that's the direction you want to go. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying just think about it. Think about what the other issues are outside of finances and how those might impact your ability to work with a family member on your finances. Okay. So leverage professionals, find people who can help you, who can help advise you, who can help make sure that you're focused on your finances when you need to be, and otherwise you don't have to deal with them. Okay, so that's number 5. Okay, number 6. Okay, so build wealth through habits, not obsession. Okay, as much as I'm involved with finances and handling other people's money, I've never been obsessed with finances, and I think that it's not a healthy way to approach life to be obsessed with finances. So we want to be prudent, okay? We want to be disciplined, but we don't want to be obsessed. So I was talking to somebody yesterday who was telling me that she used to work for someone who, even when she was so sick she couldn't get out of bed, he would tell her, "Oh, you're just being lazy. Get out of bed and get to work. That's the best thing for you." It's like, I find that to be obsessive. Sorry, if you're sick, you're genuinely sick, you're better off staying in bed and healing, getting better, and then go back to work. Okay, so but this particular individual, I don't know the person, but I think this particular individual is just too obsessed with his business for that to be just too obsessed with his business. Period. Right. So we don't want to be that way. What we want to do is focus on creating some basic good habits. Number 1, living below our means. Okay. So we don't want to be uh, spending more money than we're earning. We don't want to do that. Right. Now, sometimes we earn more and we can spend a little bit more. Sometimes we earn less and we have to cut down our spending. But the main thing is we always want to stay certainly within our means, preferably below our means, so that we have some additional money to invest and build wealth. So that's one habit that we want to create. Now, that can be difficult if you're just starting out on your professional life or your career life and you're struggling. You may have student debt to pay and you may not be making a lot of money and it's expensive to live. Okay, so you may not be able to live below your means right now, but do your best to learn to live within your means. And that way, as your income grows, you'll carry that discipline, that habit with you, and that will help you be in a position to have money to invest. Okay. And most of the habit, most of building a habit of living below or within our means really comes from the daily choices that we make. Okay, so I know when I was had my first company, one of my daily habits was going to Starbucks. Literally every morning, I would go to Starbucks and I'd have a coffee and a scone, and I would read the Wall Street Journal, right? And and after a while, I realized, gosh, I'm spending, at the time, it was probably like $50 a week or something like that, and that's not a good habit. And so I dropped buying the scone, frankly, and I got my coffee, which at the time I think was a couple dollars maybe a day, and I drank my cup of coffee while I read my Wall Street Journal, right? And so it was just little things like that that helped me create the habit of living within and below my means. Okay, eating out a lot, that is a very bad financial habit. Okay, it's a bad health habit too, generally. The food we make at home, generally speaking, is healthier. We'll set that. We'll save that for an episode of Jiggers' Place. But it's expensive to eat out, and it's harder to exercise discipline when we're looking at all those great things on the menu. Okay. On the other hand, you may really enjoy eating out. It may be one of your pleasures, food. Okay. Okay. So then maybe, create the habit. You eat out only once a week, or if you can afford it and still live below your means, twice a week. Okay. And exercise that discipline. Okay. Another thing that eats up money really quickly is having food delivered, right? It increases the cost of food by at least, I think, 10 to 15%, right? So if you're going to get takeout food, and look, they're just once in a while, I get takeout. I'm just so exhausted from the day. I look at my kitchen, I'm like, no, I can't do it, right? So so what I work to do is go pick up the food rather than have it delivered. Okay. So build habits of small things, okay, that will help you live within or below your means, okay, and create the kind of financial discipline that will serve you throughout your life. Now, you may say, oh, it's too late for me. I'm an old guy like you, Kevin, or I'm not quite as old as you, but I'm in my 50s already. The die is cast. No, that's not true. Okay. I know someone who, has later in life started making much better money than she made ever before in her life. And, she always had to really struggle to live within her means, oftentimes didn't. Okay. And now is developing the good habits of not just living within her means, but living below her means. And it's incredibly laudable. Yes, it is harder to develop habits when we're, a little bit farther along in life. Okay. But that doesn't mean that we can't. Okay. The fact of the matter is, many old dogs can be taught new tricks, and we can teach ourselves new tricks. Okay. And if you're younger, you're just starting out, even better. You can build good habits from the get-go. Okay. So build wealth through habits, not being obsessed with building wealth. So that's number 6. And then finally, and this is, I've talked about this before, but I want to mention this here because this is such a fundamental financial concept. If you understand nothing about finances at all, if you don't want to know anything about finances at all, I urge you to learn this one thing, and that is the power of compounding. Okay. So the power of earning interest on the interest you've already earned, essentially. Okay. So if you were to invest $100 today and you get a 5% return on that $100 over the coming year, at the end of the year, you're going to have $105. Like, okay, great. I made $5. Okay, fine. Right. If you leave the money for another year, okay, in the next year, you're not going to have $110. You're going to have $110.25. Okay, so you'll have made $5.25 the second year, i.e., a little bit more. You say, big deal. I made an extra 25 cents. Well, here's the thing. If you leave that $100 in that account, in that investment, earning 5% a year, okay, then within, what is it? I lost the rule. I think it's within 20 years. Well, no, that can't be that long. Rule of 7. Let me think about this. Shoot, I lost the rule. But anyway, within a certain period of time, it will double in value. And the rate that the interest you earn increases goes up each year because of the compounding effect. Okay, so interest in the first year, $5. Interest in the second year, $5.25. Interest in the third year is going to be something like $5.40 or $5.35, something like that. Okay, and it keeps getting more and more and higher and higher. Okay, actually, I think 20. If at 5%, I think it takes 20 years to double. So you may say, well, okay, 20 years and I'll have $200. Okay, but you only put in $100 to begin with, right? So, but if you put in $2,000 at 5% in 20 years, you're going to have $4,000. Okay, and the fact of the matter is that's why you want to continually add money, or you continually want to invest money, because not only the additional investments, but the compounding of the return you get on those investments is going to be incredibly powerful. So that's why it's literally possible that even if you make really just a middle class income, okay, you can, over your career, retire with $1 million, aside from whatever equity you may build up in a house. Okay, so I'm dealing with an estate right now where the fellow passed away. He was in his late 60s. Okay, and he always worked. I mean, he never worked at big, high-paying jobs. He was a very middle class guy. Okay, I never got to meet him. I'm administrating his estate. I've talked to some of his relatives. Very nice guy. He was a great uncle to. He was a terrific uncle to one of them, and he just lived. He just lived a regular life, like millions and millions, like tens of millions of people do here in the United States. Okay, and he's got a retirement account that's got, I think, over $600,000 in it. And that wasn't the original amount, because he was when he turned, I think it was 62, he started making withdrawals from it. Okay. So he might have had something like $750,000 built up in that retirement account, just putting aside a little bit of money each month by month, investing it, letting it grow, letting the interest compound, letting the return compound. And that's in addition to his house, which his equity in his house is probably another $500,000, maybe another $750,000. We haven't finalized that number yet, right? So this is the power of compounding, and the sooner you start investing, the better you will be. And the reality is, you can just invest in an exchange traded fund, an ETF that tracks the S&P, and the chances are you'll do fine. Okay, you don't have to immerse yourself in financial data. Okay, and so just the message of compounding is, the best time to start investing is 10 years ago. The next best time is today. Okay, because the sooner you start investing, the more compounding will work for you. Okay, beyond that, there's not a whole lot else you need to know. Some of the other tips that I gave you about investing in things you know and understand, automating your finances, using professionals, all of those are good, I think, good ideas. They're things that I hope you will consider for your own situation. But the main point for Money Made Simple is start investing today if you haven't started already. And that way you will put the power of time at your working for you, okay? And time will help you build wealth, okay? So I appreciate very much. Thank you so much for joining me today. Always got my live viewers on today. Always a treat. This is my last show for today. So let's see. Next week on Monday at 10 a.m. is my show, Trust and Estates Weekly. I'll be off Tuesday and Wednesday for the Jewish holidays. And then on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time is my every other week show, Jiggers' Place. So I hope you'll join me for a cocktail and a schmooze. And that just leaves me to thank you again for joining me. If you have any thoughts, comments, criticisms, links to the show note, links to my social media are in the show notes. Feel free to drop those in there. If you have something personal that you don't, want to put into social media, my email address is there. I haven't mentioned this for a while. I'm happy to respond, but if you're asking me something that's out of my area of professional expertise, I'm not going to respond because it would be wrong for me to do that. But I will, give you some thoughts on where you can get an answer, or if you want, refer you to someone who can help you with that issue. Okay, and okay, so that just leaves me to sign off as I always do and say, Marie, darling, you are my belle. Courage at all times, my friends.